Hello everyone, welcome back to Codecraft with Kevin. In today's video, we are going to learn how to secure a Spring Boot application using JSON Web Token or JWT. If you are looking for a way to secure your Spring Boot application, then this video is for you. Okay, let's start with basics. First, we need to learn to go to jwt.io. You're going to see there is this introduction page. Which basically talk about the basics of what is JWT Web Token, which we know it's an open standard for securely transmitted information between parties as a JSON object. So this information can be verified and trusted because one, it's a digital sign. You have to know that it consists of three parts: header, payload, and signature. This is the example of the header. Okay, which has this algorithm of HS2556 and the type is JWT. Then the payload, you go down here, this is how the payload look. Then the signature, this is the signature. Okay, so now what you're going to do, you're going to go here and you're going even to see there's a lot of information. So this is your encoder token. This is an example of a token. Then this is the header, which have been extracted from that token. This is the payload, and this is a signature. We are going to do Java. There is a lot of libraries here. You can see there is Go, but our focus is on Java. So this is the one we are going to use when we start using. Okay, now let's start by getting our Spring Boot project. We are going to go to startspring.io. I'm going to generate and I'm going to come back when I've opened my Spring Boot application. Now let's get started. We have already opened our project and it has finished syncing. Second, we need to now create our entity. But on my case, as you can see guys, I'm using IntelliJ. First, I'm going to create entity package here. I'm going to call it, and then I create a class called user. Then I'm going to notate this with @table. Oh, @table is not there. Why? It's because I forgot to add JPA. I'm going to use JPA. So what I will do here, I will just go back to my Spring.io and I add JPA. And I sync the project. I'm going to make it as a table. Good. Then I'm going to give it a name and I call it user_tbl. After user_tbl, now what do I need? I will need to have ID, private long ID, private string username, private string password, private string first name, private string last name. Now then we need to notate this class because we need to notate it as entity class. It's an entity class. Then you can see it's complaining is because we need to add the .id, then at generator we want that ID to be generated in the strategy. I will just give it generated type. I give it auto. Then we need get and setters. I'm just going to use data from Lombok. Oh, I didn't also add Lombok. Let's also add Lombok fast here. I just say Lombok. I can also do this and I copy everything and I come inside my pom.xml. I replace with everything, then I sync. Done. So data from Lombok. I will add also no argument constructor, and all So now we are done with our fields. So this is going to be our, but now another thing we need to add, we will need to have the role of a user, because we need to know who is accessing the API. Private, we are going to have a list of roles. It's going to be a string of roles. It's complaining yes, because we need to add at element collections. And then yeah, we are going to make it fetch, add fetch eager. Yeah, the target class, you can add a target class, which is in our case it's a string.class. So now we are done with our entity. Next we come and create our controller. User controller. User controller, we are going to notate it as at controller, at rest controller. Now after that, we also need to create the service. We need also the service. So create the service, user service. This is also another way to create a package. The first one is package, the second one is the class. User service, which is going to be a class. Then we also need to notate it as at service. We also need to create another called repository. The first one, as I said, the first one it's a package repository. Then dot, then you put your class or your interface name, whatever. So mine is interface user repository. So now let's start implementing. So we will start implementing by going, we need just to create a simple endpoint. This endpoint is going to let a user to sign up and to log in. So I just come here and I call, I'm going to just add a request mapping. I'm going to call API/user. Then we need to have an endpoint which is going to get all our users at get mapping public, going to be a response entity. I'm going to return here user response, which I haven't created. I will create it shortly. Or let me just return the entity, which is user, get all users. It's going to be a list of users, a list of users. Then what we need now to do, we need to come and call our service here. Private final user service dot user service. We need to add at require argument constructor. Remember I taught you all this in the previous video, so if you haven't watched the previous video, I've left the link here on how we create a CRUD app using Postgres, so you can look at all that. I will just call it find all users. All users. Then it just return response entity. First accept, then body. And this is our body. That's what we are going to return. So let's go ahead and create this find all user methods. This find all user methods is going to pick everything from the repository. I'll just call the repository find private final user repository then require argument constructor from Lombok, user repository dot find. Okay, now find all, that is going to be a method, but it's not yet there, so we need to go and implement our user repository. So it's going to extend JPA repository. So JPA repository, remember the first one is the object, which is user, then the type of the ID, it's long. Done. Then I'll go back. Done. You see it's already done, it's there, it's, and the error has disappeared. So that is the endpoint we have just created for getting all our users. So now let's now try to call this endpoint and make sure we can access that. We know, me and you, we know there is no one yet in the database, but let's go and try. So first, what I will do, add the data source URL inside the application properties. I'll come and say springboot.datasourceproperties.url, then I call JDBC. We are using PostgreSQL, then localhost. Yeah, so I've just generated all this, but we can now remove what we don't want. This is the name of our database. So our database, we call it user_db, username Postgres, password Postgres. Okay, we can just leave the default. Then we have the Hibernate dial, and we have the format which we need, the Hibernate.format.sql. So that's what we need. So now what we first need, will do, we have this. Let's go to Docker Composer file, make sure this it matched. Okay, the password is Postgres and the username is Postgres. So we have let me just confirm here, and that's what we have here. So now what I will do, I first run my, okay, let's now start our Docker Composer file. Just going to run the Docker Compose file. You can see, okay, while the container is running, let's check if the container is Docker PS. Yes, this is the container which is running here. Good. Now what we need to do now, we need to call our Postman collection. I'm going to use Postman collection. Let me start the projects. Okay, it has started. Okay, first unauthorize. That means we can't call anything here. So before, let's check why we are not, why. Let's now make this endpoint first to let us get everything, then we are going to secure it. Okay, so but if you see now, since I've started a Spring Boot, let me show, there's something I want to show you first. You see this, by default Spring Boot has generated for us a password. So that's the password which we are going to use. So I'm going to go to here and I say localhost/API/8080/API/users. It's telling us first to sign in to access our data. So I will copy this to access the endpoint. I'll call the default password is user, and the default username is user, and the password is that password. I click, boom. See, it's returning for me empty. There's no username in the database. So now that where now we need now to continue from now. What we need to do, we need now to create another endpoint. So this endpoint, what is going to do now is going to add users in the database. Okay, or I'll call it register. I'm going to call it it's called register endpoint, public response entity user register is going to take a request body, and I'm going to call user DTO, data objects user. I'm going to create it shortly. Then return response entity dot OK. Then we give it a body we call user service dot register, which I'm also going to create shortly. We pass it user DTO object. So let's go ahead and create first this class. I'm just going to create it inside I'm going to create it inside DTO dot inside DTO. Let's add it inside DTO. Good, we have created it. So rather than having a class, I'll just have a record here. So that's how it will look like. Then we create also this, which now is going to help us to save our user. I'm just going to call return user repository dot save. Now we need to save the entity, which is our user entity. As you can see here, it accepts. It's a user entity. I'll just come and say user dot user equal to new dot user. So I can use at builder. Let me go ahead and add builder here. So but at this point, if we try to register a user, it's going to refuse. Let's try and see. So we have gets. Now let me add another one. It's going to save this as add user unauthorized. You see, this is what I was trying to tell you. So it's telling us unauthorized. Then that is going now to make us now to create a Spring Boot configuration now. So I'm going to come inside our project here, and I create another package called config. I can call it security configuration or config, yes. So since it's a configuration, we need to configuration from Spring. Also, we need to enable security. So at this point, we are not going to use we are using the latest Spring boot security public. We are going to use the security filter chain, which take HTTP security, and this endpoints will throw an exception. CS, we can disable it for now. Abstract the HTTP configured, disabled. Crossed origin, now we are going also to disable it for now. Then we need now to add authorization, HTTP authorization requests. So this is a place where we need now to understand which endpoint we need to allow a user to access. So what endpoint? Let me just start HTTP request matches. Now we need to add our endpoint here. That's register endpoint. API.register this endpoint. That's the endpoint we need now to to allow it to be accessible without a token or without it be secure. We want to make it unsecure. Dot permit all, and we return the http dot build. Then this is we notice that with that bin. Okay, so let's restart our application. Register a user. Okay, we have successfully registered a user. Let's try to get all the users. Let's try to call this endpoint again. So, let me see, get endpoint API. You see, it's a you do not have authorization to view this page. Let me actually use Postman collection so that you see. You see, it's giving us a forbidden, so we cannot access this page because we are not everyone need to access this page. Now at this point, what we need to do, we need to make sure this user, when the user has been registered somewhere here, when we are saving, we encrypt this we need to encrypt this password. You know, we need to use the be encrypt private final be encrypt password encoder. Yes, it's also asking for a bin, which I'm going to add shortly, but let's first encode this password. So password encoder, pass it also there, and we come and say password encoder dot encode. We are trying to encode the passwords, which is user dot password application app configuration, because this is where we are going to add all our configuration file. I'm just trying to separate it with this Spring configuration, security configuration. I just add this one at configuration. Just add bin public password encoder, return bcrypt password. Okay, let's forget new here. Inside our service, oh, I suppose say password encoder. Sorry guys, yeah. So password encoder instead of bc encrypt password. Yeah, then I restart the application. Good, I started. As you can see, it's giving us this, but we are going to remove that shortly. I will change this, say surfing Chanabalea. Just run. Yeah, you can see the password. It's really now coming, but it's not a good practice to show your user your password. Is not, and how can you ignore that JSON objects password coming there? So what you need to do, you need to come inside our user role, and you just need to annotate this password with a JSON ignore property, and that password cannot be returned at that point. Okay, so password has disappeared. Why first name? Oh, first name. Oh, sorry, this is a typo. First name. Let me register. Now it has come, but the password is no longer there. Yeah, so now we are done with that part. Now our part now is to make sure we can access this user password. Is this user, we can get all users. So at this point, it's when I'm talking now about JWT. We need to add the JWT library, then we start. So as I told you earlier, we are going to use this library. I'll go ahead here and create JWT filter. I'm putting it inside the package filter, JWT filter. The package is called filter. Then this filter is going to be at component, then is going to extend once per request. This once per request filter from Spring framework. So then I'm going to implement it here. So this is the one we're implementing, the filter chain. Yeah, the context equal to security context holder dot get context. Now we have the context string dot authorization header equal to request. We are getting it from the request which the user is passing dot get header dot authorization. Import it. It's coming from spring.http header authorization. Username, our username, we give it as null. String.jwt token. First we'll do, if we need to check if the authorization header is not equal to null, and authorization header starts with bearer. Then if it is, then we come and say JWT token header equal to authorization, and we substring by 7, the index of that 7. We need to extract the username from JWT token. Username equal to JWT service, which we haven't created. So we need to come here and create private final JWT service. Let's create it. We're going to create this class inside our service class. We're going also to notate it at service. That's a required argument constructor. Dots, we need now to extract. We are trying to extract the subjects. Then we pass it JWT token. So this is the method we need to go and create inside our service. We need first to have a claim, which we haven't. It's going to have extract claim, the claim which we pass the token, the JWT token. Then we are going to extract the object from it. Let's first create this method here. It's not going to return a string, but it's going to return a claim object from JSON Web Token. And now we need to create, it has its pass, the parser, verify with. This is where we need now to generate the key, generate a signing key. So let's generate a signing key from yes, then .h mask. Then at this point we are going to pass that algorithm we want to pass, decoder dot base. I'm going to use base 64 decoder. Then I pass the secrets. So this secret you can store it in the database or somewhere else which is safe, but on our end here I'm going just to secrets. Then I'll come here, say private token dot secrets, so it's a one. Then here we are getting get subject, extracting subject from it, JavaX crypto. Yeah, so that's the one is going to return. Now we are done. Let's go back in our let's go back in our filter method. So inside the filter method, now we are sure we have our username. We have extracted our username successfully. So after extracting our username successful, if that token, let me just do JWT token header equal to null, context state authentication is equal to null. Then at this point we shall do the filter chain. We'll do filter, then we pass the request and the response. We return it. Username not equal to null, and security context holder dot get context dot get authentications equal to null. Let me come up here and say private final user service, user detail service, then here user detail service dot load, we pass it our username to get the details, then the user detail. If dot JWT service dot, we need to create this is token valid. I'm going to create that one shortly. It's token valid. Then if it's valid, what do we need to do? We need to get auth token new dot username password authentication token. We pass the user. We also pass the credential, which at this point is null. Then we need to pass the user dot get authority. We now need to set the details, which is new dot web authentication detail resource details. Then we pass the request, the servlet request. Then you secure the context, security holder dot get context dot set authentication. We set it to auth token. To filter, we pass a request and a response. Now let's go and create this method inside our service. So this is the method which is going to validate our token. It's going to do the validation of our token. New date, actually new date dot before. Now we need to extract the expiration here. I'll create a method called extract expiration. Then I pass it a token, JWT token. This method is going to extract. This method is going also to do the is going to return the claim, because it's from the claim where we have we also have this extract claim. We pass it the token, then we extract now expiration date. That's what we need. That method is done. So we have done with that method. Now what we need to do next, security config. Inside our security config, we need to make sure at this point we add the session filter, session management, call it sessions dot session create policy. The policy I'm going to call it session. I'm going to make it a stateless policy. Add filter before. I'm going to put JWT. We need to add JWT filter here. Final JWT filter. Ads require argument constructor JWT username, password authentication filter class. Now we are done with that part, and yeah, our endpoint is here. It's now running and it's still giving us this. Now good. Now we need now to create another endpoint. This endpoint is the one which is going now to log in user response. So with this user response, I'm just going to add it. I'm going to create a class called response. I'm going to create a package called response dot response. Yes, going to be inside. Oh, it's going to be a record. I'm going to make it as a record. But at this point, we are just going to return a token. To go back inside our controller, and we create also this method manager, authentication manager. Let me just add it here, private final authentication manager, authentication manager. We're going to create it bin shortly. Authentication manager does authenticate. Now new username password authentication token. Then we pass the username and password, username and passwords which a user will send. Okay, then next we need now to generate the token. String token equal JWT service. We also add it here, private final JWT service dot generate. Now we need to learn now how are we going to generate our token. So it's going to be a string. It's going to return a string. So return JWT's web token from JSON Web Token dot builder header. Then that which type we need to pass. That type is we are doing JWT. Do the algorithm, which remember we use there's an algorithm we did there. So now the type is JWT. Good. Now we need to pass now our subjects. Go back and subjects. Our subject in our context is our username. Then we need to add issued date. We're going to get a method get issued date. We're going to create it shortly. Hold on. Yes. Then we also need to add expiration dates. It's good also to add expiration dates also. Then we need to now have signing with. We are signing with it. We generate a signing key with the method we already have it. Then we do dot compare. That is going just to be issue dates. We are going to get the dates which we are trying to create. So first we are going to have the dates. Okay, dates from java.util. Let me just call this issue dates. Issue at equal to new dates. Now it's going to get the current time in millisecond. The system current time gets current time in millisecond. Then it's return issue date. So now we are done with that. We can go back to our user service, return new .user response. I'm just going to pass that token. Good, and it's done. And we create that authentication manager, public authentication manager, which take authentication configuration, let's call it configuration. So it can throw the exception dot get authentication manager. It's a bin. Okay, it's saying user details. Good. It's saying parameter 1 constructor JWT filter require user details service. So we go back to our JWT, we go back inside our JWT filter. It's saying that user that could not be found. Say user details service. Okay, so I think at this point we need to come and yes, this one here, user details service. Yeah, so we need to go back inside this user guy here, this user. We need to implement user details service here. Implement user details. With its method, we need get authority and this one. Yeah, we're going to implement this one shortly, the one for getting authorities. Let me just do return this one for now for purpose. Let me just return everything to true for testing purpose. Now we need now to implement this. So before we implement it, let's first go and change inside user details, inside this service, JWT service. No, it's inside user details service somewhere. No, actually inside the filter, where it's having an issue inside the filter. I'll just call this user details. Okay, it's getting from that one. We don't want to use that one from user detail. We shall just use from ours here. Then we have to cast it with users. So yes, now we need to implement this method here. It's really simple. We're going to set, because we just need to get the authorities from the roles which we are going to pass. So set, I'm using set from the hash map, simple grant authorities. I want to save it inside the hash map, hash set, role. Then we loop inside our role for each role. Authentication authorities dot we add new simple grant authorities. Then we pass also the role. Then we return authorities. Okay, then after that we need to add a bin. It's bins there. So I'll come here and inside the security we also need to add its bin there. Okay, so why are we adding it? Because we are trying to solve first this error which said consider define a bin of type user details service in your configuration. Okay, so come here and say public user detail service, user detail service, UserDetails service, return. Then we have to pick the username from our repository. I'll just say private final user repository. At require argument constructor. Then we are picking just username. Let me just say username dot user repository dot find by username. I'm going to create this method shortly. I'm going to create it shortly because it's accepting username, it's taking username. Let me just create it. I'm just going to return, going to be optional. I'm going to make it optional. Maybe user of user detail. Okay, user, and or else throw. What are we throwing? We're throwing just an error. I'm going to throw another error. I'll teach you guys how to create a custom error, so you can check on my previous video and you will see how I create it. I'm just going to use username not found exception here, but you can create a good exception here. User not found. User not found. It's a bin. So I'm seeing there's an error inside the another one missing. So we run. You see now we no longer have the default Spring Security. It has already gone off because we have added Authentication Manager there. So now we are fully using Spring JWT. Let's try to log into. Let's try to call this endpoint here for authentication. Come and duplicate this one. And this one I call it authentication and password. Hit. It's saying yes. It's saying specify the key one something JWT hash. Oh yes, the secret is complaining about our secret. So remember the secret I created. What I'll put that side is not HMC SHA algorithm. So it's not a HMC algorithm. That's the reason. So there are websites for that. There are tools you can go online and generate yours. And so let me just change it. This one, what I'm talking about. Let me put this one. Yeah, which I've tested and it's working. Okay, which error? Now this is another way. It's saying character sequence cannot be null. Character sequence cannot be null. Inside JWT service, then we see what's a problem, which is calling this method. Is this and this for this? Let's check this expiration. Okay, is valid token. Good. So now it's taking us okay. So it's trying to, it's look like it's trying to call this, it's trying to extract the subject from that token, but authorization header at this point is null, so it just goes inside here, inside the if statement, this if statement here. Try to restart again. Try to restart again. And okay, yes, okay, it's okay. Send. Username is Alice. We come and say authentication. We make a request. Good. Now we have our token here. Now we can now try to get our users. Okay, try to get the users. We pass this token. We need to pass this token. Endpoints. Then inside here, authorization, the token. Pass our token. Pass our token. It's saying forbidden. Authorize request. Good. Now the last thing we need to do now here, we need to make the request, you know, that post of ours to work. First, let me add http://request request matches http posts as any authority. We need to add admin, our authority, and we need any requests should be authenticated. I just added that because I discovered I forgot it. So you can see at this point we just open for this, but this other one is not. So I'll just do this a bit, and I'll come authenticate. To generate for me the new token. Come here, get users. Sorry. The token. Good. You can see how our endpoint is now accessible. So you can access it even though you are not. These are all the users we have in the database. Just copy this token here. Just copy this token. Okay, I've already copied. I'm going to put it here. So look, type JWT. This is the algorithm we are using. The header, the payload is this, what we are sending. Okay, this is the time from the system time, expiration time. The signature, verify the signature, secret base 64, all everything. So I can click, it says signature verified. Okay, so thank you guys for those who are